We actually have Yomwan over on the Hanzo.
And defensive bunker set up as well from Nova MS. Note here that Batiste got buffed on this particular patch we're playing, so he's got a little bit extra in the tank to use there. For Nova MS, want to be able to rely on that. Green League's running a very similar kind of comp. They're running the Batiste as well, so I believe this is actually a mirror.
Yeah, it's going to be a sort of series of pitched battles, actually.
There is a Diva instead of Roadhog for Pocky. That's the big difference.
And I do prefer that when you're looking to be the attacking team, for one thing. Extra bit of damage mitigation, extra bit of mobility, finding vulnerable members, helping pick them off, etc. But it's actually Xerathi who goes down first, and now Nova MS want to try push that advantage, try walling off some members, but Hoshimi quick to prevent that.
So this is what I think makes a difference here, as we do have a disconnect on that hook. I believe Hoshimi was able to cryo freeze in time, but Green Leaves with the Diva should be able to look to rotate a lot easier with the use of the defense matrix. They're not looking for the early pick potential on the Hulk hook combo. That's going to be Nova MS's game plan. Green Leaves just want to be in a position where they can set up, take high ground, and really play the angles.
Nice. Again, deny on the hook, the wall going up in front of it. And now Green League's starting to make their approach. They've actually got the amplification matrix already. Red Fox does have hers as well, but winning it now. 50 has picked up the first kill of the fight, so it's already advantage Green Leaves as they start to muscle their way onto the point. Nova MS don't have a lot of good ways to push them back off.
And that goes super poorly for Nova MS, where they have to immediately leave the point. They use their own amplification matrix and don't even get to play the extra damage there. Now Green Leaves are on the point. 2 ticks about to come through.
And Hoshimi sitting onto a Blizzard as well, so even as Nova MS come in for this recontest, they're fighting onto an opposing Blizzard. Innan's already down. The only casualty so far for Green Leaves has been Pocky's mech, and it's looking like that'll be the only casualty here. Piggy goes down as he starts channeling that whole hog. That's super brutal. A Ting now just going on the point to die. They have at least run the clock down a little bit longer, but it's still 4.5 minutes now as the payload begins to move.
And we see here, he who amplifies themselves first, in this case Green Leaves, is going to get the better result. They were able to do just that much more damage, set up for the spacing, set up for the positioning on the camp itself. By the time that Nova MS were realistically able to contest again, too much was already gone. They didn't have enough members. They're already on to B now. Ultimate's available, so they don't want to make too many changes as we head into this point. Pocky, however, is now looking to go on that hog.
Once again, the amplification matrix coming out first for Xerathi, mainly because Red Fox does not have one yet. Answered this time by the Transcendence for a bit, but a Ting takes some pain, takes too much pain, goes down. The Ice Wall, unfortunately, not enough from Kerberos to save him. Now Red Fox picked off as well. Piggy gonna fall, and Green Leaves are gonna keep plenty of momentum on this card.
50 picked up so many kills here, 3 within the last few seconds. As Kerberos falls down eventually as well. For the Green Leaves, they get a second amplification matrix, which just goes through that main wall so quickly. You can't realistically use that to defend for too long, because the extra double damage coming through means that wall just completely melts down. Green Leaves already approaching the end point of B.
Oh man, a Ting already isolated there, goes down. Piggy ends up in the line of fire of that Dragon Strike, takes damage, gets hooked out. It all just falls to bits here for Nova MS on what was really only a last-ditch defense anyway, and it's unfortunate. They had some of the right tools. They had an amplification matrix. They had a Blizzard. If they'd been able to commit them, they probably could have won the fight.
Speaking of winning fights, Green Leaves, as they push onto C, the next amp matrix already nearly up for themselves. Hoshimi still has available a Blizzard, and that's going to be a player advantage now, 6v5 already, and Nova MS are not in position to be able to hold yet.
That is a nice trade-off, though, as Yom1 drills down Piggy, but the payload's only just starting to move anyway. Pocky's probably going to be back in this before Nova MS are even ready to fight.
And you got to be really scared of the potential combo between the amp matrix and also the whole hog. That's going to be a ton of damage coming in. Green Leaves setting up that amplification matrix very early and results in a kill.
I like the really aggressive angle of it as well. It forces Nova MS to give up that corner if they don't want to stand right in the line of amplified fire, and it's just giving more space to the cart more than anything else. No one down so far except for Piggy. A little bit late on the fingers there with the Transcendence, unfortunately for NN. Red Fox still has the amplification matrix available, but they do not have a good place to. It's
cold in here.
Double Blizzard, man. It is getting chilly, but it is even colder in hell for Nova MS, because unfortunately that's where all the members have found themselves. I don't mean to say they're sinners, I just mean to say they're dead. Green Leaves looking like they're going to march this cart over the terminus, largely uncontested across C.
You have here Green Leaves completely demolishing that Nova MS defense. 3 out of 3 Ant Matrixes useful for their team, getting the value. 3 to 3 for Nova MS. Unfortunately, nothing comes through from it. They drop it down, can't quite find the damage, immediately pushed out of the, I guess, effective area. And that's going to be a reasonably fast cap, all things considered, for Green Leaves, where, okay, A, took a while to get in position to actually get the cap, but once they were there, that was all there was. There was no contest from Nova MS anymore. Go to B, pretty simple roll through, 1 attempt on there. Go to C, even more simple. You'd say that was just 2 dominant points in a row after a short hurdle to climb past after A.
I felt like you were watching that whole thing going, all right, eventually Nova MS will find themselves with an ultimate advantage. Eventually they'll find a good position, but I'll say 2 things about that. For one thing, Green Leaves did a massive job of just having ultimates available. Like, the uptime was insane. Xerafi had an amplification matrix for almost every single fight, and also the way they use their ultimates around what are otherwise key defensive positions. I touched on one of the amplification matrices used, or matrices, in point C. I mean, there was some really clever plays there from Green Leaves to just deny space to Nova MS.
And on top of that, you saw from the highlight reel as well, 50 getting a ton of damage in his hand zone. That's one of the other key DPS picks in this current meta as well, in this 2-2-2 game, where that's a lot of your damage coming through from the team. It's not just about the hook combos. In fact, Green Leaves weren't even playing the Roadhog on their A offense. Now going on to their own defense here, we got 50 jumping over to the McCree, which had its own buff pretty recently, so faster fire rate, pretty deadly here. Still going to be running the Batiste, and the extra ammo count on the Batiste grenade launcher means you are going to see the Ant Matrix up a lot sooner.
Cloud just floating. What value does it get? Oh, nope, nothing. All right. That's a little bit rough. Nova MS going to be making the approach.
When you rain in the middle of the woods and no one's there to see it, Nova MS now
Would even get wet.
Well, who knows? Nova MS now running Piggy on the D for us. Also similar offense that we've seen from Green Leaves where, okay, we're looking at rotations here. That's what we really value. That's why we want the defense matrix.
Oh my goodness, they didn't even care about the wall. They went, yeah, let's just get going. And Scenario takes big chunks from that. It just creates space, forces Green Leaves back. This is a good start already for Nova MS. The mortality field as well provided them a very nice spot from which to rain fire onto whomever decides that they will brave a foot on the points. And that's going to be an even quicker cap for Nova MS than what Green Leaves accomplished.
And most teams play the Immortality field quite defensively, but what you see Nova MS doing is kind of just placing it down through tempo, saying we're going to be taking this point control now, going to have the Immortality field on the side, just around the corner, so you can't directly take it down very quickly or at all, and then use that to be able to do a lot of damage, maintain sight lines, and push Green Leaves off them. Their tanks were in trouble the entire time. Scenario and Pocky trading aggro, but never really doing anything back to the other team. They just took a ton of damage, had to back up. Green Leaves couldn't stay on the point, couldn't stay controlled on any part of A, and had to back out.
Oh, that's a nice early pick on the Yon1. Decides to commit the Dragon Strike as well. And now Kerberol's going to look to do the same to try and split up Green Leaves. They think they want to commit to this fight, but they think wrong. And Ting's down as well. And there's been no recovery kills here for Nova MS. Now with Kerberol slightly sure to go down, nicely converted on by Pocky. And unfortunately, the momentum has completely stopped short.
And Green Leaves were able to capitalize by putting down the amplification matrix, getting that extra damage in their 50 again, taking those kills in there, Cloud finishing up with the sleep dart as well to ensure that Hook comes through. And this is where you want to be setting up your next defense. Notice that for Green Leaves, okay, despite not taking A as fast, by now on B, they're already pushing out in the next corner.
One. Not going to find anything with that one. Now the ultimate's coming online here for Green Leaves. They've got another Dragon Strike used one already in the last fight. That is a nice final Pocky, but it's going to be Transcending forced out from in. Nice catch there by Piggy. They're ahead in this fight now officially as Sashimi getting pressured. Nice catch on 50 as well, trying to get fancy in the back line, and they're going to start drilling down the few members that are still contesting the area. So Nova MS only stalled up for a brief period of time, all things considered.
And this is where you want to see the momentum really start working for Nova MS, where they're still getting ultimates online. Yeoman's going to have high ground control now as well. Very hard for anybody to contest them up there. And Green Leaves waiting for full wave of respawns. They got everyone alive, but they need to find a staging area where they can put down either the amplification matrix or the supercharger, maybe even both if they really want to ensure a lot of damage in there, but they need the firing lines.
Green Leaves just looking to make their way out. Oh, are you kidding me? That's absolutely gross. That's also the two members that were going to benefit from that amplification matrix. So that's now a dead ultimate here for Nova MS, who are still going to commit to the fight. They have at least found Pocky and Sonairo. There's still trades coming through, and this is where it gets gnarly. Xerathi commits the amplification matrix, but Kerberos is the one dealing the damage, and with only 18 hit points, gets all 3 of those kills, 4 of the remaining members of Green Leaves, and Nova MS are barely going to squeak through that fight.
Doing his best 50 impersonation on that B point as well, staying alive despite Xerathi putting down the amplification matrix, and it looked like it was going to be a disaster for Nova MS, who put down their own amp matrix just earlier, lost 2 members instantly. Are you kidding me? Is exactly what NN77 said when both his teammates went down next to him, and now Nova MS poised to get a decent time on to see if they can keep this up.
Still going to make that push in now. Going to be the Immortality Field and Supercharger. Very hard thing to push into, but they're going to use the self-destruct to try and make it happen. Nice halt as well to keep Cloud and Pocky in the line of fire for that one. And now they can just push in with a flat numbers advantage. Losing Yom1 is a bit of a shame, but honestly, they are far and beyond coming out the better end of this fight, Nova MS.
And no take a breather there from Pocky as well, which probably would have kept them alive with the damage reduction. So Green Leaves losing 2 members plus a Supercharger, losing the rest of the members shortly afterwards. If they had kept at least Pocky alive, that would have still been a 5v6. There may still been a counter trade there. Pocky gets a hook or something. That's still winnable for Green Leaves. But now we're on to what will possibly be the last defense.
Good heavens, would you look at the time, says Yom1. Gets some good damage as well. Now they layer it up with the Dragon Strike, and that's going to be enough to fight Pocky. Blizzard going to come out on the defense from Hoshimi. Much needed stall tool here to try and make some kind of fight happen with that amplification matrix out as well. But it's still Nova MS getting the majority of the kills. Now Rez is there onto Yom1 as well, and it looks like Green Leaves are going to fall over. Only a few seconds looking to separate these two teams as we come into the time bank, and it is actually still Green Leaves on the slightly favored end of that, but that is incredibly close.
7 seconds, I believe, is the difference between the two teams here. You can see where the successes were had, where the quote-unquote failures were. Okay, it's going to be 8 seconds as said, so close.
Yeah,
but on A, you had a much quicker cap coming through from the side of Nova MS. A slightly slower one, in some ways, coming through from Nova MS, and then a little bit of a slowdown for Nova MS on this B point, but this was a particularly important phase for them because you see the amplification matrix come down. Instantly, Kerberos takes a side angle, wins a 1v1 versus 50. If he loses that one, by the way, he doesn't then go on a killing spree to get rid of everyone else. Him staying alive here on 18 HP, avoiding the amp matrix damage coming through from the defense, and then collecting all those kills means they can't beat.
I mean, he's even just like, what if 50 had still been on the other side of that amplification matrix himself? He ended up sort of in the front of it, and there you go, see him dropping down from the roof. If he dropped down somehow behind the amp matrix, would have been a totally different fight. Just a lot of small things allowed Kerberos to get a huge amount of value.
The other small thing here to really think about is the fact that Devo is still being run by Piggy on that particular point, on that particular fight. So the early defensive matrix usage just means you have someone like Kerberos that can just slip away easily. If the DM wasn't there, possibly he gets taken down very quick.
Now both 50 and Kerberos looking to pull out the same thing as we come into time bank.
Let's get a move.
One of them wants to prove once and for all that they are the superior Hanzo, and we're also going to see Yom1 back on the McCree, so let's see if Nova MS can have as much success taking A as they did the first time around.
And Kerberos had the most impressive Hanzo performance in recent history and recent memory as well. Again, we have to go back to that Talon matchup. Kerberos was absolutely popping against Talon, but now he's got to have that same consistency versus Green Leaves. Very similar time in that time bank, but Nova want to be able to change that now.
Oh, that's a big pickup there from Yom1, confirming the kill onto 50. Immortality Field goes down to the remaining members, and they end up fighting a ting while that's hip-hop happening. This is now Nova MS a little bit scattered, a little bit haywire.
Trade goes well in the favor of Green Leaves, especially now that they pick up Yom1 as well and Kerberos to count. But the point is, if you lose your main tank, that's a big deal. Ting going down means no more shield to play with. You still have a defensive matrix, but Piggy's not going to keep that up for ages. Green Leaves still have Sonairo up. They can still hide behind his shield. He can still play on the front lines. And Green Leaves, again, also going for hook combos. That's quite deadly when you don't then have your own Arrested to back you up.
Immortality Field used quite early here from Nova MS. On their original approach, we saw them able to use it quite aggressively, and now
speaking aggressive,
matrix down, out from Green Leaves. Also Red Fox committing hers, and between the two of them, the dust starts to settle. No one's really got the better of it. Nova MS has got a bit closer to the point. 50 going to try to slow them down, but Kerberos has a tool to match that as well, so both teams just starting to wet noodle their way into this fight.
And sometimes it's a bit of a stalemate because when both teams have a weapon of mass destruction, no one wants to fire that first shot. And Green Leaves, okay, they are backing out a little bit now. Immortality Field down is going to give Nova MS a bit of space to push in.
Ooh, that's a big sleep onto Yomwan, and that's quite possibly his death. No, he's able to give him the slip. Had also killed Falcons before that. Now going to get frozen up, though, on the edge of the Blizzard, and that was also the Blizzard committed from Hashimi to keep the point on lockdown. Nova MS kind of have to be a bit in for a penny, in for a pound here. They've started committing the ultimates as it is. They do at least find Hashimi, so now as the members start to reinforce, and with Green Leaves positioned in all sorts of awkward spots around the point, it's looking like this could be the one for Nova MS.
It has, however, been a significant slowdown and not technically over yet. If Green Leaves are still coming back and they're forcing ultimates, the team actually using the supercharge out of that, so that's going to be a bit of a loss walking into B, considering this was going to be an A cap for them anyway. That's just going to be a little bit more of a slowdown as we head towards the overtime.
And look, they'll still have an ultimate advantage. They've still got Dragon Strike, they've still got Amplification Matrix. Even Deadeye can be useful for zoning here, because you are just looking for cart progress more than anything else, but it just means they might get a little bit less distance than they otherwise would.
Now, this is going to be the most important fight now. This is where it all counts, because if Nova lose one engagement, their push is over.
Early damage coming out. Yeah, that's all nicely laid out by both teams. And there's the first kill coming out. It is Bucky going down. Sonaro as well. The supercharger was reasonable, as was the amplification matrix from Red Box. And it ends up being that Nova MS just find the right kind of value, but they're largely drained dry now. Only Transcendence coming online next.
And these are now very long respawns as we're in the overtime. Every single point of meterage that Nova MS does get, Green Leaves needs to be able to match on their own offense. And if this is also a B cap, Green Leaves might not be able to really match anymore, and they will be losing Hollywood. So Nova MS are very much looking poised to take this. Transcendence is a pretty big deal, despite it being their only ultimate. Self-destruct also coming online.
Gonna have to try stall this one, maybe. Oh, that's already rough, losing 50. Tempo Transcendence coming in. They know that they can just press the advantage now, secure a cap, get that extra distance. It's going to say the Amplification Matrix and maybe Blizzard from Hashimi, the only things they have to go on.
They gotta get trades.
They're not getting them at all. Now the members start to drop like flies. Nova MS cap B.
That was with two members stuck behind a Mei Ice Wall that Hashimi put down. Great usage by him, by the way. Yomwan was one of the members that couldn't do any damage. You have your own Amp Matrix down to be able to get those kills. At minimum, you should be looking for 1 or 2 kills here. Green Leaves then have a slight respawn advantage. Maybe they hold B, but the fact that we're on to C now means Nova MS get way more than they bargained for about 3 minutes worth of time in the time bank.
And this is where the little things really start to count. That kill on 50 with the extra long respawns has amounted to an extra 40 meters of payload progress. These are the things that add up. You throw out the Dragon Strike, you stop the fight from coming in from Green Leaves for a few more meters. Now finally Green Leaves can commit to the cart with the Blizzard. Immortality Field is down, self-destruct, catches Sonaro. That's Dragon Strike's gotta be
Green
big.
Leaves are not getting
Otherwise,
kills.
it's not looking like it's gonna be Green Leaves holding out here. It's even more distance, it's even more value now for Nova MS, man. They have made miles out of their initial in.
I'm pretty sure they're going to cap the whole map at this rate. Supercharge is still available and very long respawn time still in effect. Green Leaves are going to struggle to get all 6 members alive. Yomwan is even going to live here, and that's a big deal too.
On 4 HP, even going down late as he did there, Cloud can come in with a Transcendence, but there's still a whole lot of Nova to fight through. Immortality Field very nicely laid out there, but not enough to save in, and it looks like this is finally where Green Leaves might end up stopping this cart. Indeed, with these kills coming through, the far away respawns and no counter trades, it will be. But dude, 1.23 meters from the cap is nowhere near the defense you want in the time bank.
And I think Green Leaves were very committed to trying to keep running their own risk hold combo with the Batiste and all of that, and they rightly towards the end discovered, hey, actually, if we just run dive here, we can flank around the Arista Shield, we can flank around the Amplification Matrix, we can take down the Immortality Field quite easily with traces and whatnot. That should work, and well, lo and behold, it actually does work at the end, but they had to sacrifice so much here. This might as well be a cap. Yes, it's not technically one, but I'm not sure that Green Leaves can make this kind of distance happen. They would need a similar snowball through B and C. They would need to be able to cap A, you'd think, in a reasonable amount of time. If they cap A at all, that could still be a very reasonable slowdown. Again, they were the slower team in regulation time to actually get A compared to Nova MS.
Yep.
So Nova, you gotta say they're in the lead, they're in charge here. This is their map right now. If they lose this one, it'll be very disappointing.
The reality is as well, no matter how quickly Green Leaves cap A here, at some point they will enter overtime. Nova MS have already pulled off some sort of miracle by getting that much distance in the overtime. That's the thing Green Leaves inevitably have to match, right? There is no world where this can be all done in some kind of regulation time. There is going to be a point where their backs are against the wall, and that's where I see them being most likely to crumble, if not prior to that point.
We already have a different setup from Nova. Again, so they're not running the ground base up, they're taking high ground super early. Green Leaves, I guess the good news from them is they can put a lot of spam damage in from longer range. They don't have to commit as fast, but they will be forced to do something right around that first corner. And again, time is of the essence as well, so Green Leaves can't afford to wait too long.
So I like the setup from Nova MS here. As I say that Yomwon goes down, I like it a lot less now. If they've been able to spam out and slow down Green Leaves, then just rotate down, slow them down further, it would have been great. Now it's a disaster. Nova MS are having to play the defensive game here comparatively. Green Leaves are the ones with the aggressive immortality field.
We're waiting to see, okay, Nova MS are waiting for Yomwon to come back in. He is a Tracer now, so they're going to get 6 eventually, but as it happens, they lose 2 more members.
And Yomwon is one of them. Comes back in only to die straight away. Nice catch on Hashimi is at least a trade made, but 1/3 already over. Nova MS just go, no, we've got to do it. Immortality field's off cooldown. We've got to try and make this work now, but as soon as that immortality field goes down, a Ting is already low. It is going to be a trade there with Sonaro, but Green Leaves, they have closer respawns for one thing, and still more members here currently. Kerberos doesn't want to go down without a fight, but will still go down.
And this is already a good start. This is what Green Leaves need if they want any hope of actually being able to match the distance. Because there isn't a full cap coming through in Nova MS, they don't need to finish the map. If they cap at all on C, they're going to still be able to win, and they need as much momentum. They have 1:40 to go through B. By this time, Nova MS had about 20, 30 seconds, if we're being generous, to get through B. They hit the overtime super quickly. Green Leaves have a little bit of leeway here. If they lose a fight or two, they're still okay. They're not quite in the overtime yet, but they don't want to spend too long losing fights. They still want to get as much done with the time that they have.
Here's a really big silver lining here for Nova MS. They could afford to play out that fight as it did, sort of throwing bodies on the point, because they forced ultimates out of Green Leaves for one thing, and they did also drain a bit of time off the clock. Now it is those ultimates that they lean into. The amplification matrix first among them. Sonaro going to go down. Hockey low might just get out, but it is going to force Green Leaves off the cart.
And you can see the respect there as well. They know the amp damage is going to be really big. They put the wall up to try and escape. Sonaro doesn't make it around to the corner in time, and now it's going to be a full reset. This is one of the 2 resets they probably can afford, and maybe it's just a half now because they're still losing members on the exit. That one trade is going to be decent, will help out Green Leaves slightly, but they do need to be able to capitalize on this as their ultimates are coming online.
They have to fight into a supercharger here out of a Ting as well as the Blizzard, and actually both going to get committed. No one's in the Blizzard.
Out-rotate it.
And they just back out of the supercharger.
Yep.
So this is time that Green Leaves do still have in the pocket. They can just wait this out.
And you want to be able to look for a good fight here. Okay, if 2 ults come down for Nova MS and they're not going to get value, that's ideal for Green Leaves because they still have ults coming online. They still have ults, so they can still play this.
They can also still lose members and unfortunately having to stand right in the front of the Dragon Strike of some of these folk. Be the response now from 50 to Blizzard out as well. They find in and a Ting with that. That is the opening that Green Leaves need again. An expensive one. And they're still going to have to wait for some members to get back to this cart as they take possession of it. But they are back underway as the overtime hits.
And this is what you got to bank into if you're Green Leaves. You can't afford to be giving up those fights because so far you've given away fights as we're going to run over Red Fox's body there. Kind of gross, but Nova MS, look, they're going to be back in position soon. They're going to get a decent engagement here. If Red Fox can drop down this amplification matrix, they can do some real damage, but Green Leaves still have ultimates to lean into. And again, this is the advantage they've been buying into for that extra 140 with the time.
Man, one pick either way does it. The amplification matrix down. Sonaro's going to go down early. Nice immortality field, kept the members alive, but they needed to use that time to find picks, and they do not. That is an absolute wash in favor of Nova MS to make the defense happen, to take us to match point, and I have to say, resoundingly recover from Temple of Maneuvers.
And it wasn't a, I'll still give enough credit to Green Leaves here. It still doesn't feel like a comfortable win for Nova MS. It feels a bit more comfortable towards the end when you see how much they get away with in the time bank, but the fact that it was an 8-second difference where Green Leaves are actually ahead and not Nova MS, first of all. Then you have what I think is an unfortunate defense for Green Leaves where they allow that entire push to come through. Realistically, the defense only needs to win one fight in that overtime scenario. Then the game's done. Well, at least that push is done. That phase of time bank is over. We then flip the script onto the other side. But that just never really happened until we got to the C point spawn. That's far too late. You really need to be seeing exactly what Nova did, which is they were able to stop it roughly around B. And that extra 140 of time on the attack and time bank for Greenleaves as well only got the same, similar-ish kind of distance that Nova got with about 30 seconds. So, again, didn't really lean into the extra 1 minute and a little bit of advantage that they kind of had on B. So, I don't think Greenleaves played specifically the B point as well as they could have. A was pretty decent, and Nova really won on I think that particular B point attack and defense in the time bank.
And the crazy thing is, that's actually the opposite of what happened in regulation time, right? In regulation time, we saw Nova MS really have little to no defense across the entirety of B and C. In fact, aside from the 2 minutes they burned off the clock on A, they didn't really slow down Greenleaves a whole lot, except for the slightly bigger fight right towards the end that Greenleaves still won. That was why they actually had a little bit more time coming into time bank, again, only by a margin. And it was Greenleaves who had the better defense across B and C, but a better A attack for Nova MS. The opposite happens in time bank, but the better attack across the streets phase is what wins it for you, because in time bank, you're just playing to that objective of distance. If you get free distance, you are far more likely to be the winner.
And I think if you also look at, okay, where Greenleaves actually end on their time bank, which is, again, roughly before B point ends as well, that would have been probably more than what you expect a normal attacking team as they hit the overtime to be able to get. We're talking about Nova here. Nova probably shouldn't have been allowed to push past B anyway. So Greenleaves, in a sense, where they pushed through on their B point time back, that's about where they would win the game. If Nova were stopped there due to a good Greenleaves defense in the time bank on B, Greenleaves then would have pushed to that point, capped it out. They'd be the ones sitting at 2-1. But because I think they played that B point so poorly, that's the reason why we're now looking at a 2-1 in the favor of Nova instead. I think Hollywood is still very close outside the time bank. In the time bank, Greenleaves kind of fell apart, and that's something they're going to need to look at now for map 4.
But we can also sort of point still to Temple of Anubis as much as it's partially in the past, right? Like we saw Nova MS having that attack where they were really floundering. I feel like what we're seeing is a lot of the actual hard numbers of this match so far are ending up coming down to teams sort of falling short of the mark and misfiring, and that's a little unfortunate as we come into what could be our last map here. I want to see both teams really playing their best.
I got some good news for Greenleaves, and that's that they get to pick the map, and so far whoever's picked the map has taken that map so far, and we will be going to Escort for the next one, so let's go ahead and find out how that works.
Welcome to Watchpoint Gibraltar. This is Escort. Two teams face off as either defenders or attackers. This is the payload. The attacking team has a limited amount of time to escort the payload along a set path containing 3 checkpoints. The payload only moves forward when an attacker stands near it. Defenders can delay the payload's movement by standing nearby at the same time. To get moving again, attackers must clear away the defenders by force. Every time the payload reaches a checkpoint, the attackers score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. If even one attacker is near the payload when the clock runs out, the game enters overtime. This extends play indefinitely until the attackers are either cleared off the payload or they gain more time by reaching a checkpoint. The round ends when the payload reaches the destination or when time runs out. Teams switch sides each round. Whichever team scores the most points and escorts the payload farthest wins.
Map number 4 is going to be Rialto, and I'm very curious about this particular map on our current patch as well, because for the last year, Rialto was dominated by GOAT. So we're talking about most of the map here. Okay, on A, you're going to see some fire and stuff, but basically across the rest of the game, and even on A, it was just GOATs. There was a lot of tanks being played here. Now teams have to really think about what else do we want to do. I think Orisa Hog is still going to be the main thing here.
Probably.
Fire is still going to be relevant. Widow's still going to be relevant. Hanzo is going to be relevant. A lot of what we saw on Hollywood B, I would expect to be played particularly on Rialto.
And curiously, what we saw was, like you said, a lot of that Orisa Hog. Also seeing a lot of the Batiste teams really leaning into the Immortality Field and Amplification Matrix, especially. Yeah, it's going to make this very exciting.
The other thing that's quite exciting is that we are in Venice. There is a spider, but it's not Peter Parker. And on this particular offense so far, looking like Orisa Hog, Hashimi hovering the Doomfist, Nova MS, as you'd expect, is going to be playing at least the Orisa. Picky not on the Hog, though, so not pleased with that.
Excuse you, we're in Rialto. In all seriousness, this is currently Greenleaf's tournament life on the line here. So this is a very important attack for them.
Yon1 finally gets to show his Widowmaker chops, and kind of been waiting the entire series for this one. Snow's copped 2 headshots so far. 50 now wants to challenge, and look, if it is tournament on the life on the line, 50, time to bring that Widow out and really show what Yon1 what you've got, if you got something.
And I mean, do you have something? I mean, we know 50 is decent on the Widowmaker, but it's a whole other kettle of fish when you are up against Yon1, a man who took it to Patapan just last week.
Kerberos as well on the far is something that I don't think we've really seen him on yet. If we have, we didn't see a lot of it. He is a projectile player though, so this should really be one of the things he plays a decent amount of. Yon1 gets up to that infra side early.
Oh, that's the first death, and it is on the side of Greenleaves. This is the unfortunate thing. This is a very slow way to play, but Greenleaves, with their choice of composition, don't have much of a choice. They kind of have to try and out-siege Nova MS.
And this is going to be the most difficult point, or part of the map, I would say, on that first point to get past, which is this opening choke, getting into the courtyard. If you can't get past here, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, and this is where Nova MS can really shave off that clock. Greenleaves already looking for their first rotation, losing control of the card.
They've got Matrix as the key ultimate. They've already committed it now down on the low ground. It's really not an ideal firing line for a lot of these members. They are at least around the car, but they're not actually moving it. And now that amplification matrix has run out.
So 50 as well, get a clean shot, a clean attempt, I believe, onto, it was either In or Red Fox, one of the supports there. In, I believe, on the ground. It couldn't quite get that kill, and Nova now looking at a ton of ultimates being available. Both Red Fox and In and both supports going to be online with that. Kerberos still barely making out the gate.
Oh, that's really gross. I was about to say Kerberos has still been relatively uncontested, and well, that remains to be the case. Even just the one kill with the rocket barrage, it's still value, and it's still a huge slowdown for Greenleaves, because again, it's not like Kerberos died for it. He can just keep raining rockets.
And it's about half a second late on the defense matrix as well. Otherwise, Cloud would have stayed alive. You see that Pocky had the sort of off-angle DM from the side there. Nullified most of the barrage, but not the opening damage that claimed that first member. As Zerafi now does pop down the amplification matrix for a bit of revenge. Gets one.
So this is second time around, a little bit more value, but they need to do more than that still. There is a self-destruct that can slow them down, and honestly, they're only 1 or 2 headshots away from getting stopped short once again, but they are underway for now.
And you know that Greenleaves, despite, finally being under with the cut, kind of struggling if 50 can't find an angle onto Kerberos, who's doing so much damage. He just used a rocket barrage nearly onto another one, 97%. Yon1 is still finding headshots, not quite collecting those kills, but he is doing the damage.
Now the infra side as well means they know exactly where 50 is and what he's up to. They can commit Kerberos far more safely. It's going to be an immortality field to try and protect from the blizzard, but yeah, with the Diva being frozen up, you can't defense matrix away that rocket barrage. And like I said, they knew exactly where 50 was. Now, wrapping back in, they find Hoshimi out, and Greenleaves have been completely stopped short of the mark here.
One matrix attacks, one protects, and I guess Greenleaves had neither during that particular fight. 25 seconds remaining, Sonara down means it's going to be another reset and going into the final offense attempt for Greenleaves now.
Group up here.
Greenleaves looking rough. Like I said, tournament life on the line here. It's certainly not over just because they don't cap A, but it does make their defense even harder, and they already lose Hoshimi.
5v6.
That's about as brutal as can be. Pocky is going to have to commit a self-destruct here inevitably. Now Zerafi dies in that same rotation. There's the self-destruct, but everyone can just run and hide. Pocky will not be remeching. And this last fight is over before it even really began. Greenleaves unable to even finish capping out the courtyard here at Nova MS. They are their own cook and waiter today, serving their victory to themselves on a silver platter.
Your own food should taste the best, if you're a good cook at least. I'm not, but in this particular case...
It's a shame.
It is. Because you'll never get my food.
Yep.
In this sort of case as well, you have now a almost capped A point, which means Greenleaves need an absolutely stellar defense here. Now, we've seen teams still win from this position. It looks pretty bad. But It is still possible. Doesn't happen often, and Green Leaves would need to make a huge case for it because losing here means they're out of the quarterfinals and they need as much as they can get. That's a nice cheeky play from Piggy, pushing Shimi into the water, ice floating.
I call that on the rocks. It's like when you have a drink with ice in it.
What's also crazy about that is he kind of slid off the boat
Because he made of ice,
just on the boat. And then he just like, watch this again. He's on the boat he's actually on the boat.
No one's actually
itself.
looking at it when it happens as well. That's some Illuminati nonsense right there.
I get a May kill on the rocks.
That sounds delicious. What do you think's in that?
Well, you were a bartender, so
I'm gonna make that drink when I get home.
please do. Make one for me.
It's actually just gonna be straight vodka.
I think Green Leaves as well, looking at this. Okay, this is partly why you put Hashimi in over something like 10 for this particular map, which is to say, okay, there's Fire is a thing here. So we want to play Fire, we want to play Water. That's a combo that you have to get a lot of value out of. And Nova are going to be playing Kerberos on the Fire as well. And in a way, Green Leaves off to that one kill, gets res in. Green Leaves can do a very similar thing that Nova did on their own defense, and Green Leaves are going to have to do that and even better to actually take us to a map fight.
So the thing is, Nova MS do have to fight for the sightlines that their DPSs need here. So Oshimi and 50 should have an inherent advantage for this earlier stretch, but if they lose it, they might never gain it back.
And you do favor the defensive player here who has the initial sightline, and Yeomon, you can see he has to fight for it, so he has to find the angle against 50 who already has the angle. And look, when Yeomon has a free shot, he is landing some of this. Pocky will go looking for him soon.
He's got that take a breather out from Pocky, but I mean, with that, Pocky's topped off. He's all right. He's a happy lad for now, a happy hog. Little bit less happy, though. He is eating the majority of the spam damage. Now, Biotic Grenade, and he doesn't have his self-heal. He's going to go down. So Nairo low as well, and it's slowly but surely starting to come apart at the seams here for Green Leaves.
50 went on a bit of a walkabout there,
dear.
found nothing, tried to get a shot into Red Fox. Meanwhile, Yeomon's like, if you're not here to contest me, I'm going to take down your team. And speaking of, Kerberos is getting so aggressive on 50.
And unlike on their offense, Nova MS are actually moving the cart as this fight has been taking place. So there is not going to be a secondary fight with all 6 members. This is going to be down to the wire, if it's even that. They can't get to it. Welcome to the semifinals, Nova MS.
I guess this was in some ways fairly expected. The only real thing you have to think about here is, again, what happened on Temple of Anubis. That was a pretty big hurdle for them to trip up on. In some ways, okay, you can awkwardly hop over that one, pretend nothing happened.
Oops.
Hope that the camera wasn't on you during that time. But no, we saw you fell down. You fell over. You had to get picked back up. But we got there. We got to the finish line. And Talon, they got there so much sooner, though, because, I mean, they didn't even have to run this race technically. Green Leaves, it was a good shot. It was a good attempt. I still think Hollywood was reasonably winnable for them, but again, the time bank was rough enough that they couldn't quite take us any further. If we assume that Nova MS were more than likely going to take Rialto. However, the context here is also that the map selections might not have been the same. If Hollywood was won by Green Leaves, we might have gone somewhere else instead of Rialto. So it's hard to say where, but that being said as well, it would have been Nova MS picking the escort, so you do still favor them on that map pick. With Nova MS winning on Green Leaves map pick, that is them now definitely asserting their dominance. Full hold on A, 1-0 scoreline there, as dominant as you like, a clean push through on their own offense. Basically no defense against some minor, resistance there, but they crumbled fairly fast. And Green Leaves, still a reasonable run through the tournament, but it does end today.
And that's the thing, it has been a reasonable run, right? You come in from trials, you make your way into playoffs, it's about as good a season as you can hope for, even if you go out in the quarters. And it's a little unfortunate that it's against a team they beat in the regular season. In fact, it was the win over Nova MS early in the season that kind of established Green Leaves as a genuine threat this season, not just another run-of-the-mill in through trials, straight back out into relegations kind of teams. And they've also kind of borne witness to this kind of passing of the torch from the previous Japanese squad of originally Cyclops Gaming that re-entered as Jupiter, now relegated this season. And we have a new team taking up that mantle, but that team's journey has ended here. Nova MS, on the other hand, they get to have that still repeat success that they seem to have season on season of being one of our best teams every time we come into playoffs.
The other thing to consider for Green Leaves is that unlike last week's performance, which they played against Fire Society, where, okay, Cloud was missing, we're thinking this isn't their strongest showing, this isn't the strongest their team could be. That was a pretty hyped up match to then be kind of disappointing in a way where you didn't feel like Green Leaves were playing at full strength. This time around, full roster, 7 members, even rotated them based on maps, as you would expect, very similar to how Talon had been playing throughout the entire season. Cloud was in the entire time. You had people on the right roles playing the heroes they're known for. Hashimi on the Pharah, 50 on the Widow, things that you know these guys are going to perform on. Now it's kind of like, okay, you gave it your all, no excuses, still took a map off of Nova, which I think is commendable considering the strength of Nova now. And speaking to Nova, you mentioned, okay, they're a team that has been historically quite strong. Historically as well, they made 2 finals in a row where they finished second place twice in a row. However, this time around, it's going to be hard for them to make that finals because only one team between them and Talon can actually go to finals.
Now, look, here's what I'll say. Far East Society and the winner of our second quarterfinal notwithstanding, I dare say that if Nova MS make a 3rd finals appearance here, then they're going to win that finals. And it's going to be because they've already beaten Talon in the semifinals. You do that, congratulations, you're the new best team in the region. That is almost going to be the real challenge here for Nova MS. That's the match they've usually played in their grand finals that they have lost.
Well, it certainly does feel like this is the more stacked side of that bracket so far, and you did allude to the other quarterfinal. That is what we will be waiting for after the end of this break. It's going to be Global Esports taking on Cyclone Coupling to maybe prove that they could be still a very dominant force as well in the tournament. We'll see you guys right after this.